Welcome back for a third episode of Growing Avocado Trees from Pits. It's day 107. So this episode covers another span of 3 months. I know I haven't updated for a long time on anything. It's been 3 months. And like my plants have been through some trials and tribulations, but I'll walk you through the entire thought process of troubleshooting these problems. In particular, I'm referring to these avocado seedlings and also my lemon tree, which recovered from a year of neglect in 2023, but unfortunately it's run into some troubles as well in 2024, and I do think I know how I can fix that going forward. So I'm going to cover a variety of topics, and as you can see, this is a very long video. So the seedlings look fine enough. You can see there's a bit of leaf curl. And on day 109, I decided to get this Spectracide Immunox multi-purpose fungicide. So cures and prevents all major diseases, protects up to 2 weeks. Myclobutanol is the active ingredient. So the Bayer BioAdvance 3-in-1, that does have like disease resistance. It is not very specific as to the mechanism or what kind of diseases. I mean, I'm sure they list it on the label, sticky label on the back. But I didn't measure this out. I just put it in a spray bottle. And it may be too concentrated, and we'll discuss that in detail. But fungus seems to be a big deal with, you can't see it from here, but the lemon tree is in the back. If you can even call that a tree, it's not big enough. But yeah, I think a lot of the problems I've had with plant growing series over the years are mostly due to pests and diseases, mostly fungal, I believe. So it's day 115. You can see there's seems like there's always like a backup shoot ready to pop off, but you can see there's a little bit of leaf burn here and there, like on the tips. There's flies trying to land on the stuff, so obviously the smell, the taste of that, I don't know what those two are doing. They're mating, or there's one a predator, etc. I think they were probably mating. So yeah, there's bite marks, there's leaf tip burns, and there's just bugs. So then on one of these leaves, new leaves, that's curly, there's like some dead leaf matter attached to it. Overall, the aesthetic of this is quite good. It's not like major problems, and you can see I was kind of focusing on that fly battle, whatever that is. Pretty sure that's like mating. So yeah, there are new leaves coming out, but you know, some of these are curled, and you can see these little shoots at the bottom that never really develop. They're just sort of backup offshoots, or you know, secondary shoots, so to speak. So looking at this from all angles, otherwise, you know, it's got the first shoot and you know, a second stem that's thinner and more bendy, going off to the side, pointing where the sun shines in the afternoon. So I never thought that phototropism would be a big deal, but you know, that second shoot seems to point towards where most of the sun hits in the afternoon. So I'm going to knock this off and observe the other plant. You can see sort of on the underside of one of these little nascent developing leaves, it seems to be some kind of bug or droppings. We'll keep an eye out on that in the future. So yeah, things are coming along fine though. It's not in an imminent state of emergency or anything. It's just got some bugs on it. You can see this one has a bit more leaf curl, and it appears to be burned here and there. But if the Spectracide that I applied to everything was dangerous at whatever concentration it's at, then wouldn't that just burn everything uniformly? So that's what I don't really get. And I've seen katydids eat my and hang out on the ice cream bean tree, but I don't know what's biting holes in the middle of this. Like it could be katydids, it could be something else. This little A secondary shoot is really cute. It just has really well developed leaves and it's sort of in a suspended state of development. So on day 119, I decided to take this spray bottle that I did the pilot test application of spectricide Immunox on and just test it out on various weeds, unwanted plants, and shoots. So some of that stuff coming from under the fence, they're more on my neighbor's side. And here you can see, just a mix of different weeds and things that were planted here before that had seeds in the ground that resprouted maybe. And I'm not going to go into the whole identification discussion about what every single one of these are, but I figured this would be a good test to see if it causes leaf burn at this concentration, the Immunox. So that's all there is in this spray bottle aside from some tap water. So these sprawling weeds are spotted spurge. They're a type of Euphorbia maculata. It's a weed that's native to America, native to North America, and it's gone worldwide. I'll discuss that more in detail later. But yeah, this is an invasive species that went global and naturalized in the other continents, with the exception of Antarctica, I guess. It's all over the world. And this is like a sorry, state rose bush that it never does well. You can see all these holes in it. And I'll discuss more on this later, but I think the Bayer Bio-Advanced bottle is just old. It doesn't deter insect predation. And if it has some kind of nasty taste like it smells, it's certainly not deterring insect predation. But I never catch the rosebush predators or like parasites in the act. I just see all those holes. I don't even know what that thing is. So it's day 124. So what is that? For like 5 days later, I decided to do a follow-up check on all these unwanted weeds. And I don't really see any signs of leaf burn here, do you? I don't see anything at all. So I'm starting to think that the burn tips on the avocado seedlings, especially on the backup, that's not due to the concentration of the Immunox being too high. And these are plants, little weeds that are just like facing drought conditions, because that little strip of soil in the background, you see it there on the left, it's just too dry. And it only goes a few inches deep, so I can't grow California poppies and other things that I like to grow. I mean, maybe there's a little burn there. It's really hard to make this judgment call, but overall, everything is super healthy. So spotted spurge has triterpenoids that have anti-inflammatory and anti-proliferative properties. By the anti-proliferative, I don't know if that means, prevents cell proliferation, like cancer from developing, but tumors from expanding. But with that said, this is a dangerous species with a poisonous milky sap. So I was instinctively right to always wear gloves when pulling these. They do have these tiny little flowers. They're almost invisible, and they generate lots of seeds and little fruits. Frankly, at a distance, I can't even really tell what's a seed and what's a fruit because everything's so tiny. So when you're standing up, it just looks like loose. It looks like loose. What am I growing this stuff in? Again, I forgot. The coco coir, yeah. So it just looks like that on the ground, and the birds love it. So it seems like this plant flowers every year. It's got like these little white beige dots on it. I mean, it's probably got parasites as well. It's just that I don't really care about that plant, but it does pretty well on its own. So that's one of the hardier plants. It's not like the rosebush. So yeah, you could see, I'm just going to peel these off. There's a little bit of burn. There's many reasons for that. It could just be the fertilizer is too concentrated. It could be the Epsom salt. So the Epsom salt sounded like a great idea, and on paper it sounds like a great idea, et cetera, but it's just Maybe it's the combination of everything. It's just like I'm salting the earth, the coco coir essentially. And if you do that, then it's harder for the root system to passively absorb water and deliver it to the shoot systems of your plants. And that just results in, the plant being chronically dehydrated. So you can see there's a little bit of leaf curl over there. But overall, I would say this plant is in good shape. And I'm not worried yet. It's just that like some of these new leaves have some problems, but for every leaf that seems to have some kind of a problem, there's several new ones showing up that look perfectly fine. So for the time being, I'm not too worried, but you can see on the spot, you sometimes see little spots here and there. So those are either aphids or aphid droppings, deceased aphids, etc., etc. Yeah, this shoot hasn't really moved. It does have a little bit of leaf burn on one tip too, of a tiny leaf. So yeah, this is it's still going pretty well, I would say. I'm gonna knock off all the withered away little growths that didn't go anywhere. But yeah, so far it's okay. I'm just thinking that I want to head off these problems before they become too severe. And when you're growing avocado, there's no shortage of problems. So most of the success stories I think I've seen in other people's videos or heard about in real life, certainly you can grow them in pots and be okay, but I think they're always going to be stunted in growth. I don't realistically expect the one in the much better pot to the left with an internal water reservoir to get all that big. Although my ice cream tree has produced a lot of fruit in its second fruiting season. Yeah, that cutting's done well, but it's sort of at the limit at which it can reach in that pot, I believe. And during the summer months, I had to just water maybe like twice a week even, and saturate water to the point where I see a little bit of water coming out of the runoff hole in the bottom of the pot in one corner. So yeah, that plant is so thirsty. It drinks water like crazy. And surprisingly, the California poppy planter is also like a huge water hog as well. You can see that in the background out of focus. So you wouldn't think so, but California poppies also consume so much water. Shocking, because that pot would be during the summer and even in the hot months of like August, September in San Diego, it's just drinking water like crazy, despite having very fine, tiny leaves compared to all these other fruit trees. So that one is very unexpected, but when things started to cool off later in the year in 2024, I noticed the water usage just fell off a cliff. I didn't have to water. For some plants, it was almost like I didn't need to water anymore. And as of the time I'm casting this, it's already mid-December. So the rainy season is upon us in this Mediterranean climate. And soon it's going to be too wet for my plants, or like whatever nutrients are in there from the Miracle-Gro, they'll get washed out. And there's going to be other problems. I think in the winters here, it's not cold enough to freeze gastropods to death. So there's going to be snails, there's going to be slugs. But I talked to my neighbor and she said there used to be really bad snail and slug problem, but it just magically disappeared this year. And I said, well, that's because I keep throwing iron phosphate pellets out all over my yard every time after I water. So that just attracts all of them, they eat them, and then they die. So in the background, you can see I have all these different cups with pre-dissolved fertilizer, crushed vitamins, Epsom salts. Back when I was adding the whole 9 yards, it's just easier to do it that way and faster when you actually need to fertilize instead of ladling everything out into the same watering can and swishing around with some water, adding more water, swishing, etc. So I'm diluting the Spectracide Immunox just in case, even though there's no conclusive evidence that this is what caused those leaf burns on the avocado seedlings. But just to be sure, I'm diluting this a lot. I use quite a bit, testing it out on all those weeds and unwanted plants, or plants that I don't really care about, that I don't have growing series for, that are just growing all around me. So I figured that's a good bit of experimental science to try out, and just to demonstrate and rule out that it's the immunox that's burning. So the immunox, actually, it is said to be an insect killer by the manufacturer, Spectracide. So aphids are considered sap-sucking little insects. So it doesn't specifically list effectiveness against aphids, though. So I think that's a problem. I mean, it kills things from cockroaches, and many other bugs, but I'm not sure that it specifically, or it can generally target other sorts of bugs, aphids. There are many other bugs. Yeah, I'm not going to read off the whole list, but it doesn't specifically mention aphids. So yeah, you can see the overall appearance is good. There is one leaf in the upper left here that's all curled, and then for the new growth, that's where all the aphids are, on the undersides of those new growth leaves, and it looks really disgusting. But you'll never see them like in those kind of numbers hanging out on the large, more established leaves. At least that's not the case right here. So yeah, they're looking for the new growth. And if we look down here, you can see there's these little shoots coming out. It's almost like microscopic, or not microscopic, but just like tiny succulents, a century plant essentially. That one shoot over there. And this is very similar in that it has two shoots, although this one is much further away from the main stem. And yeah, this one, its older leaves are well developed. There is that curled one that was half eaten, so that looks you know, barely presentable after I peeled away the dead stuff. But this plant is actually growing quite well. It's clearly not up to par in terms of size with the other plant, but the other plant in this much better pot, the cubic pot with much larger volume of coco coir and an internal reservoir for water, that also had the bigger pit, the much bigger avocado pit. So that is a difference as well. So I haven't figured out what's been eating holes in the centers of these leaves. It could be the katydids that live on my ice cream bean tree. So like when I water the entire thing at night, and I water the undersides of those ice cream bean leaves and branches, you know, there's always going to be like one or two katydids that run out, and they're kind of like green and spindly. They're not the really beefy big ones. And there's all kinds of katydids. Like some are predatory, some are sort of herbivorous. But yeah, you can see here the leaf that's really curly. That's also a sign of aphid infestation, because the aphid droppings cause some damage, in addition to them just sucking all the sap out of the plant. You know, just sort of like mites. You know, they're just, but instead of targeting individual cells, I believe they are just more generalist. You know, they're much bigger, of course, so they can just suck like the fluids out of the plant. And then, yeah, they get their nutrition. They have all the sugars that they need, that the plant produces. And I haven't seen any ants on this pot forming a symbiotic relationship. There's actually a lot of ants, I think Argentine ants around here, and they live in that ice cream bean pot in the upper right here. So I'm going to spray again, and you know, just watching all this in hindsight, I feel like the Spectracide Immunox is not up to task for getting rid of aphids. And I've also been spraying periodically with the Bayer BioAdvance, but I think that might just be because it's an old bottle. I forgot how many years. I mean, it could have been 3-4 years, etc. So maybe it just lost its efficacy. And yeah, using the spray bottle, it's not ideal. It's okay if it's like all hot and the wind, the air is very still, but you don't really want to be applying pesticide with a handheld spray bottle because sometimes there's a little bit of blowback from the wind, and then you feel these tiny little droplets, you know, condense or just like fall on your, you can just kind of lightly dust your forearms or even your face and lips, and it's really gross. And then so that's why I moved on to using the backpack sprayer later. So yeah, I mean, I don't want to expose myself to poison as well. So, but without like pesticides, without fungicides, I'm pretty sure like most of these plants would just be gone. The fruit trees, especially, like the ice cream bean tree, that's a tough one. But the lemon tree that really struggles, and in all my avocado series, it's just been a huge struggle as well from either disease or bugs. So I'm wondering what's going on down here. Have you ever seen anything like this? It's like this tumorous mass that looks like it's going to shoot up all these little offshoots, little growths, little leaves, and then they never actually turn into anything. So I think this could be an aphid fly larva. I'm not 100% sure, but if you look up aphid fly larva, they sort of look like that. That might just be a local species that looks different from what I've seen online, but you can see the leaves for the bigger plant are all mangled. They're all curled, and my best explanation for that is just like aphid feeding. So they deformed the leaves. You can see there's a lot of movement there as well. So yeah, I'm thinking the Bayer by Advance bottle is just completely useless at this point against everything, you know, disease. It's no longer good as an insecticide, etc., miticide. So I did watch a few YouTube videos that talked about the theory that excess fertilization, mostly too much nitrogen, causes too much new leaf growth, too much shoot growth. That's unnaturally rapid, and that's what attracts aphids and what causes all of the problems. And in one video, there was a story, an anecdote about you know, a farmer or somebody like that, an enthusiast who was growing avocado trees, for instance, and then he was urinating out in the orchard near one particular very large tree. And just doing that enough times per year provides for an abundance, an excess of nitrogen. And that led to an aphid infestation on that tree. And the other thing you can kind of see is some of the older leaves on this avocado seedling look pretty beat up. They look darker and very haggard towards the bottom especially. And that's because aphids, after they feed, they excrete excess honeydew, as they call it. So they release extra fluid, it has sugar, and that causes black sooty mold to grow. So that matches exactly what I'm seeing, and we can get a better look at that tumor over there as it develops. That's very interesting as well. But yeah, you could see that effect, you know, the leaves towards the bottom look dirty. So yeah, in the assembly of this video and doing all the research online as to what these things could be, I really learned a lot. You can see these aphids moving around. I don't know what the black ones are. Maybe they're a different species. And as I mentioned before, this might be an aphid fly larva. I haven't tried poking it or anything. It sort of resembles a flattish caterpillar. So what I'm doing here is I'm flushing out all the excess salt from repeated fertilizations with Epsom salt over the last few months. So I appreciate viewers giving me the Epsom salt tips, but I think it might be causing problems. At least that was my thought process when I came to this juncture. So after all those weekly fertilizations, I'm sure the Miracle Grow was fine, but in conjunction with all this Epsom salt, like I saw a ring of Epsom salt emanating from the base of my lemon sapling trunk. So I thought to myself, maybe that's causing problems. Maybe it's causing a loss of turgor pressure. Although after I did all the research and based on what I was just casting to you over the last 10, 20 minutes, I think most of the problems are just due to pests and disease. So yeah, I'm trying to flush everything out here. It's going to take a long time. A lot of water volume is needed to rinse out all that coco coir. And also the concentration of Miracle Grow could just be too high. As for the crushed vitamins, that's really just there to provide trace minerals, trace elements, calcium carbonate. So that's not the type of thing that will really get rinsed out because there's like little pebbles, crushed flakes of it that are just sitting there in the coco coir. But I still think the concentration of those minerals, of calcium, it's going to be a lot lower than what's out there in the wild with all those, crushed pebbles and rocks mixed into the dirt. So yeah, it takes a long time before you start to see what you're seeing right now. That hole, that outflow hole, runoff hole at the bottom, slightly above one of the corners, it's starting to spout water. So I've kept all of my plants very well hydrated. But during the summer, as you can see with the base of the Joshua tree in the back, I mean, it's just that the outer layer, the top layer of coco coir just goes dry almost immediately after one afternoon or like a whole day of the sun beating down on it. So now you can see this isn't fast forwarded. It's just at real time speed. You can see the water is starting to really spout out of that relief hole. So the water reservoir can hold a lot, but I need to, if my goal here is to wash out excess salt, then it's going to take a lot more water than this. So that's why this is a 4-minute clip of just me just blasting away with tap water to wash out all that excess salt. And the other aim too is this nozzle is very versatile, so I could spin it upside down. I can do whatever angle I want. And this also helps wash off a lot of the aphids. So subsequent fertilizations only used Miracle Grow all-purpose plant food. I wanted to keep it simple and see what could happen and not have too many confounding variables. So it's usually already hard enough to figure out what's going on with your plants. And as the weather got cooler from this point on, so like the water usage plummeted for all my plants. I would say the ice cream bean tree, because it's huge and the leaves, the compound leaves are so huge. That still had a very high rate of usage, but even for the California poppy, the water usage started to really drop off from here. I think this was around late September. So yeah, that runoff is just going to keep shooting out like that for quite a while. Usually 5 minutes, maybe not 10 minutes, but so I'm going back to using this battery-powered backpack sprayer. So I paid good money for it back in the day. It's a very fun tool. And I have a combination inside of Bayer BioAdvance, the old stuff, plus the Spectracide Immunox. I figure the Spectracide is what's doing all the work right now, but even that doesn't seem to do much against aphids. So like I mentioned earlier, this backpack sprayer is nice because it keeps me at more than arm's length and prevents, it keeps me out of the blast radius, so I don't have the little drops of pesticide falling on my skin or on my face, even worse. So it's day 143. The local foragers here consist of mourning doves, hummingbirds, sparrows, and lizards. So what's going on here is the spotted spurge, this sprawling ground cover weed, is essentially spraying out all these seeds and fruits, the likes of which are nigh invisible. I mean, they look like basically coco coir that's been scattered on the ground. It's even finer than coco coir. So that's what they're interested in. Like I said, the flowers on these plants are so inconspicuous that when you're just standing there, when you're walking around, when you're watering, you don't really see that stuff. But this is from indoors, using zoom, and the window is dirty. I have no means of cleaning the outside of the window, but I just wanted to get these shots in. You can see that very fine brown dust on the ground behind, well, where this other mourning dove is on top is going towards. That is what I think is essentially the organic detritus, the fruits, the seeds from the spotted spurge. So the spotted spurge it's a native weed, so we have no use for it, but these animals just love it. And I don't know what the lizards, I think that one is actually just like foraging for like cockroach nymphs and maybe baby crickets underneath these pots, although this pot is long dry. So there are some lizards that call my front yard their territory, and then actually there's a little bug right next to it, or it looks like there was some movement there. But yeah, the lizards sometimes I can catch them with my hands. Other times they're a little bit more shy. And yeah, I don't know what their business is here other than to just look for insects under the pot, but that's the wrong pot to be foraging under. And you can see another one here. So because I have all this fertilizer runoff, macronutrients for plants, like the plant growth is quite exceptional, especially for the weeds. So just the runoff alone is enough to generate a lot of weed biomass. So here's a hummingbird. Unless I see the underside, it's kind of hard to make a call as to what that is. Is it an Anna's hummingbird or what is it? But yeah, you can see these mats of spotted spurge. There's smaller ones here. The mourning doves are much larger than the other birds, but they find the spotted spurge seeds and maybe the fruits a hearty meal nonetheless. And this is interesting. This is day 152. So this happened virtually every day. And whenever I look out my window, I would see stuff like this. So this is a sparrow that's just feeding on whatever's in there. There's already spotted spurge growing in there. And I think one excerpt I read about spotted spurge said that they're already generating seeds, like not too long after germination, something like that. So it does kind of remind me of the reproductive strategy of aphids. So aphids can generate an infestation just from one female landing on your plant and starting to feed, and they give birth to clones. They don't necessarily have to reproduce sexually. And because of that, they can give birth to all these clones very rapidly, and then those clones are born pregnant. That's how fast they're going. And this is day 176. You could see that aphid infestation seems to have subsided considerably. Whether that's due to the weather cooling or me just blasting away with so much pesticide, I'm not sure. But I was starting to think, as we approached October, when this footage was taken, that the weather cooled down, so maybe it's just aphids are seasonal. But I think I did witness after this video, because this video ends in early November. So by the way, the leaves here are getting pretty big. So that's like a 10-inch leaf, because my finger span is 8 inches or 20 centimeters. So these are the black sooty mold infested leaves, and that's caused by aphid infestation as well. So we're losing leaves, but we're also gaining them very quickly, which is the most important thing. You just don't want to be losing leaves and then not having them be replaced. And you can see there's a lot of branching here going on as well. So even though the infestation here is not as severe, you have this branching effect, because when there's a lot of predation, parasitism, it sort of functions like pruning. So you can see a bunch of aphids there. So Yeah, I mean, at this point in the video, I've started to ease up on the fertilization schedule. And once again, what is this tumorous mass? Is this a result of germinating the pits and hydrogen peroxide? It's a very interesting side effect, if so. But if that's not the case, and you know what this is, please let me know, because I just did a search for like tumorous mass at the base of avocado saplings or seedlings, and I didn't really get anything that satisfied me. I mean, some sources mention like white mold due to the root system not receiving enough oxygen. That can't be the problem in coco coir outside like this with really good airflow. But you can see the aphid problem is it's pretty intense, and yeah, I haven't really noticed spiders on my avocado plants. So spiders are really annoying, but when you need their help, they're not doing anything. So there's a lot of spotted spurge, growing and probably spawning more seeds, and I'll never have an end to the spotted spurge infestation. But I like to yank these up and just like throw them in the pot, and they can serve as like a slow release fertilizer over time. But that'll take several generations of spotted spurge and purges to really take effect. So yeah, the leaves are looking haggard, worse for wear, and the plant is getting taller and taller, and there's like an offshoot growing also in the same direction that the second stem is going in. So I wouldn't expect these plants to display phototropism outside where the sun goes by its daily arc, but it does happen nonetheless, it seems. So that's kind of interesting how that offshoot and that secondary stem are just both going in the same direction, where the plant receives the most sunlight intensity and warmth in the mid-afternoon. And then there's a discarded water bottle there on the side. So there's a bit of a renovation. The complex was being repainted. So and I was also on vacation for the first half of October. So that's when they did all this painting, and then they left some junk behind. So yeah, like droplets of paint got sprayed onto the leaves of my plants. So you can see some residue on the older leaves, but it doesn't really matter. I mean, it just kind of flakes off after a while, and we're losing all these older leaves to, I'm losing all of them to aphid honeydew, causing black mold growth. So yeah, you could see some flecks of paint down there on this leaf on the bottom. So that's what all that stuff is. It's not from disease, it's not mold. So the backup is branching out like crazy, despite being stunted by the lack of a water reservoir, a soil mass, coco coir mass that dries out very quickly and needs weekly watering. But as the weather cooled down, the watering frequency really dropped. So I didn't need to keep watering as often. I would just sprinkle a little bit to wet the surface, maybe wet the top half, and then let the moisture spread throughout. But yeah, this is an unusual level of branching in the backup. And here's a close look at this tumor. It's an actively growing mass, and it's almost like it's expanding. It's much greater than the volume, or at least the cross-sectional area of the original pit. So yeah, I don't know what that is going to do. Is it going to send out other shoots? Is it just there as a backup in case the main shoots fail? So yeah, you can see on this backup, there's specks of paint everywhere, and there's all these offshoots growing. Even though we haven't really lost anything due to aphid predation, I haven't lost entire leaves, and the older leaves on this look a lot better too. The growth is just much slower here, so that kind of does jive with that theory I was telling you about, where they say if you have excess nitrogen fertilization, that causes growth that's unnaturally fast, and that attracts aphids. So it's a sort of victim blaming philosophy, if you will, just to say you should never fertilize because then you'll get aphids. So yeah, I think most of my problems are in hindsight, just due to aphid predation here. And there's also like the diseases that they bring and can possibly inject into your plants. So it's possible that fungal issues are a problem with the lemon tree. And here, the lemon tree has a whole set of very complicated disease problems and parasite problems. So the aphids have sort of gone away due to cold weather, but if they don't and they keep showing up again and multiplying, then I'll definitely have to investigate and test out some new pesticides. So I will try to buy a new bottle of Bayer BioAdvance 3-in-1. And there's this other antifungal, antimicrobial agent, Physin 20. I've had that for a while. The warning labels are a little scary, so I've refrained from using that, but this will come in future updates because at the time of the end of this episode, early November, I haven't applied that yet. But so far, it's looking promising. Looking out my window every morning for the past few days, it seems like there's a lot of new leaf growth for my avocado and also for my lemon tree as well, despite the very cold weather lately. So that's it pretty much for this episode. The plant looks very attractive from a top-down angle, not so much if you focus on those older leaves, which are destroyed by black sooty mold caused by aphid excretions that contain sugar. And the aphids deal a fair bit of damage physically as well, and they bring diseases, so you're going to get that nasty look. You know, the leaves are sort of turning dull and blackish towards the end. So thanks for watching this very long update. I hope to make some more videos soon. Please stay tuned to my channel for further updates.